Good morning, everyone. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. We're excited to have Mark Hamblin with us from InsightWorks, and Mark will be presenting on reduce shipping costs with an integrated solution for Business Central. And I know you're all eager to get started with this presentation. So before I pass it over to Mark to cover on this topic, I just want to remind you that we are recording this webinar as well as all of our webinars, and it will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them into the questions box on the webinar control panel, and we will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of our session. So now I'll pass it on over to Mark to kick off our presentation.
Great, thank you very much. All right, good morning or afternoon, everybody. I guess it's probably morning for everybody. Today what we're going to do is just do a quick run through of a PowerPoint here just to get us some background information. And then we're going to jump in and look at Dynamics Ship within Business Central directly. All right, so a little bit about us. We've been around for about 10 years now. We're based in Western Canada, but we do work sort of globally. And really, the key to how we work is we partner with Innovia to deliver these solutions for your environments and their customers. All right, so that was very brief, but that's a little bit about us. Now, what I wanted to do is briefly cover off some of the solutions, and if you have any questions about any of these, feel free to contact Innovia. They'll be able to help you out and get you the answers to these questions and send you the right information and everything else. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because we're focused today on Dynamics Ship, but just a quick heads up on a few other things that you might be interested in. What goes with Dynamics Ship quite often, and that's of course our shipping solution today that we're going to be talking about, are the warehouse management tools. So if you're want to automate your shipping process, you may also want to automate your warehouse processes, being able to receive and pick and do your inventory counts and everything with a handheld device. So Warehouse Insight and WMS Express provide that capability. And WMS Express is actually free. So if you're running on Business Central Cloud, you're able to go in there, go to AppSource, install it, get it set up, and start using it right away on your own, without much hassle. And again, there's no major registration or anything like that you need to do that. So if you have any questions about that and you want to try out warehouse management, just give Innovia a call. They'll be able to help you out as well. And then a couple other free tools here. Print Node Connector. If you're on Business Central Cloud and you need to do, cloud printing, like you want to hit a print button and you just want the invoice and the packing slip to print out without, any interaction, that's definitely something to look at and to get. You still need to sign up with a company called Print Node, but this allows you to do that automated printing, and that usually goes very well with Dynamics Ship because you want to hit a button and have your packing slip and your shipping labels and everything print out. So that's again a free tool you can set up. And then Doc Extender is another free tool that allows you to go out and drag and drop documents into Business Central, and they'll store it on SharePoint or store it inside Business Central itself. Okay, so a little drag and drop tool. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff here. Some of these are free, some of them are paid. But again, contact Innovia if you have any questions about any of this stuff at all. All right. Oops, something weird happened there on my sharing. All right, so let's focus on Dynamics Ship here. So Dynamics Ship, really, if you had to, describe it in one sentence, is that, allows you to do carrier integration to get your shipping labels and shipping rates based on your account numbers with the carriers directly in Business Central. So that's really what it does. It allows you to go out and either select a carrier ahead of time and get the labels, or do rate shopping across multiple carriers simultaneously. So where that helps save money and actually make money are things like you're not spending 5 minutes there typing in address information into Worksheet or Ship Manager and all those sorts of things. So if you're using those types of carrier-specific packages, we're not integrating with those packages. We're replacing those, and you're doing all of that work inside Business Central instead. So that can save you a lot of time, and entry errors with just typing things in. The other thing that helps is, if you have barcodes on your items, which is the ideal situation, UPC codes from the vendor, or your own barcodes, things like that, it allows you to scan those barcodes while you're packaging to verify that you're shipping the right product. So you're not going to accidentally ship, one white box instead of a different white box because they look the same. You're going to scan the barcode. It's going to yell at you if you're trying to ship the wrong product. So that can save you a ton of money as far as, having to ship back the wrong product, ship back the right product, all of those sorts of things that typically are your cost. So that can save you a ton of money as well. And the other thing that can help actually potentially make money, or at least save some additional money, is the ability to automatically, add those freight costs onto the orders directly. So it'll take whatever UPS or FedEx or whatever is charging you, potentially mark it up or add a flat rate charge to it, or a handling charge or whatever else, and add that onto the sales order. So what that does is it, makes sure that you don't forget to charge your customers freight, and it gives you the ability to easily mark that up. So you don't have to mark it up by much. If you're marking up by $1 a shipment or something like that, nobody's going to notice that typically, and it doesn't take very long to pay for the software doing that sort of thing. Right? So there's lots of ways that the system could save you money, or even potentially make you money as well. All right, so a little bit in more detail on what that does. So we have a large number of carriers. I mentioned UPS and FedEx, but there's about 100 different carriers we support. Most of them you would never use, but anything in North America is pretty much supported from a small parcel perspective. So UPS, FedEx, DHL, Postal Service, US Postal Service. If you're in Canada, Canada Post, Purelator, all those kinds of guys, right? We also have some support for LTL. So there's a few different ways we can do LTL as well. I'll describe that in the demo. But we do have some LTL support as well. And then, of course, what I mentioned, it can do that rate shopping and label generation. So you just say, hey, I'm shipping this package, and it'll tell you, who can ship it, what they're going to charge, and how long it's going to take to get there. And then you can go from there. Or if you've got a, preferred carrier you use, you just hit a button and out pop your labels. All right, and that uses your contract rates, so your account numbers or your accounts with the carrier. It'll use those to get the rates, to get the labels, everything else. Fairly easy to use. I mentioned the markups again, very flexible, so it makes it very easy to make money off your freight, or at least recover that freight cost very easily. And the last two are kind of handy because everybody works a little bit differently. We have a good package, you put it out there and you can start using it pretty much right away. But there might be things that you do in your shipping area that are somewhat unique. Well, we provide the ability to extend the solution quite easily. So if you need to add your own custom business logic, like for example, maybe you have a special on where if you buy product A, you get free shipping on the rest of the order as well. Well, that's a fairly custom rule. Well, you can plug that in. Novia can write that business logic for you. If you have in-house expertise, you could do it yourself. And all of a sudden, you've extended the system to do something completely different. So there's lots of things you can do to extend it. And the way it's built, it makes it very easy to extend that solution. And then finally, it's integrated with that Warehouse Insight or WMS Express, like I mentioned. So, as an example, you get WMS Express, all of a sudden you can use barcodes to do receiving, to do your inventory counts, and to pick your product. So you can have somebody out there with a handheld picking your product, dropping it off at shipping, and then shipping packages it up and gets it out the door. And so, for a very low price, you get a very good system that really covers your entire warehouse for the most part. All right, so that was really all I wanted to cover on the background. We're going to jump right in and look at the demo now. So what you see on the screen, I'm doing this actually in our Business Central Cloud sandbox here. So everything I'll be doing is inside Business Central. If you happen to be running an older version of NAV or a Business Central on premises with a role tailor client and all that kind of stuff, that's fine. We do support that as well, but I'm going to be focusing here on the Business Central web or browser interface. All right. Now, there's a bunch of stuff that Dynamics Ship has, right? There's tons of things we can look at and talk about, and depending on how hard the caffeine hits me, we will probably talk about a bunch of those. But really, what we're going to be spending our time on is the package worksheet. This is typically where the shipper is going to spend their day. That's where they're going to live, right? So really what we're talking about, I'm just going to zoom out here. What we're talking about is, if you're running WorldShip or Ship Manager or something like that out in the warehouse, and your shippers are going up and typing in all the information, well, that goes away. That same terminal will be there, right? You'll still keep that same shipping terminal. The difference is it's going to be running this screen instead of one of the carrier specific packages. And the way this works is we're going to go through a scenario where, you know, somebody's gone out and picked a bunch of product, they brought it over to the shipping counter, dropped it off, and now it's up to me to package it up. So maybe I was the one who went out there and picked all the product, or, you know, a picker did it, or whatever. But the bottom line is, I've got a piece of paper here that indicates what order this product is for, and I've got a bunch of stuff sitting on my counter, and now I need to package it up. Now, there's a few ways you can do this. If you're doing predominantly single package orders, you know, for e-commerce or whatever, at this point, I can basically execute one command and I'll pop my labels and I'm done. Or even multi-package, we can do that as well. So it can be as simple as, you know, executing a single command within the system, and I've got my shipping labels, right? So almost no interaction with the system. Well, that's not what I'm going to show you. Well, I might show you after. What I'm going to show you is sort of the hardest way possible of using the system. And so what that means is I'm going to take all the stuff that's been dropped off at my counter, and I'm going to individually package each item into one or more boxes. Right, so that is about the, you know, the most detailed way you can use the system, and that'll give you an idea of kind of the worst case scenario of what you have to deal with if you go with dynamic ship, and then it just gets better from there. So the way it works is I'm going to come in, and again, somebody's got, you know, dropped off a bunch of stuff, and there's a pick slip or whatever with a barcode for with the order on it or whatever, and I'm going to scan that here. So this is scan an order to begin. So I've just got a little USB scanner attached to the PC. I'm going to go beep, and it's going to bring up the order number and let me start packaging. So when I scan that order number, what it does is it comes in and it lists all the items that I need to package down here. So this is everything on that sales order that I need to package. Now, we do support sales orders, transfer orders, warehouse shipments. So if you do have the full warehousing turned on, that works fine. Or if you just want to ship against a sales order, that works fine as well. Now, if I scroll down, we can also see a few other details about this particular order. So first of all, it's telling us which carrier we're supposed to use to ship it. And that's blank. Well, that's generally not good, right? Normally, the carrier will be specified, you know, on the sales order, or it'll be a customer default or whatever. And by the time it gets to the warehouse, we know how we're supposed to ship it. In this case, nobody's told us how we're supposed to ship it, so we're going to get to choose which carrier we use to ship. Okay, so that's, again, a little unusual most of the time, but we'll see what happens if we don't specify a carrier here. Down below, I've got the address I'm supposed to ship to, and, you know, a bunch of details about the order, so any packing instructions or anything like that. So that's what we get. So I scan the order and we get details about the order. Makes sense. Now it's telling me to scan a package to pack. So in the scan box, there's a few things I can scan here. One is the order number or the pick ticket, and it'll bring up that detail. The other things I can scan are packages, right? So if I've got existing packages, maybe I created them with the Warehouse Insight while I was picking. Maybe I'm, you know, picking up an order that I packaged yesterday and I want to continue package. I could scan that package. So I can scan a package, or I can scan a command. And a command is really anything that I can do from these menus here, right? So there's a ton of menus all over the place on this thing. I can go and find a menu and click it and all that kind of stuff. Or I can have a little cheat sheet with 5 or 6 standard commands that I use all the time with barcodes. And I just scan that barcode to execute the command instead of going and hunting through the menu to find it. So I can scan the commands. And one of those commands actually creates packages for me. And then the last thing I can scan are items. And, you know, I mentioned earlier, being able to scan the items is the ideal situation. Because if I scan the wrong item, like somebody dropped off this white box and I go, yeah, that's a white box, I'm going to ship it, but it's the wrong white box, I would never know. If I scan the barcode on that, it's going to yell at me and prevent me from shipping that item if it's incorrect. Okay, so barcodes are ideal. Now, if you don't have barcodes on your items, that's fine. You don't have to have them at all, but I'm going to show you kind of how it would work with item barcodes, and I can also show you a little bit on how you can do it without barcodes. If you want to generate your barcodes for your items, we have that barcode generator tool. It's free, and you can use that to print item labels and all sorts of stuff if you want to start doing barcoding. And then you can start using WMS Express, which is also free, to actually manage your inventory through barcode. Anyway, so back to this. I scanned the order. It's saying, okay, what package do you want to start packaging? Again, I'm going to do this in a lot of detail. Instead of just scanning a command here saying print my label, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to tell the system exactly what I'm packaging into what box. So I go to the shelf as a shipper, I grab a standard FedEx box or whatever it is off the shelf, and I scan a command that tells the system what type of box I'm using. So I just go beep, and what it does is it creates a new package for me in the system with some default dimensions. So this is a 2x1x1 box with a default weight of 10 pounds. All right, so again, if you have 5 or 6 standard box sizes or envelope sizes or pallet sizes or whatever you use, I just scan that barcode and it'll create that box or pallet or whatever it happens to be, or envelope with the preset dimensions for me. Now I can edit these dimensions from here, or scan a command to edit the dimensions and the weight and everything else. So I can start with a blank one and just type in the dimensions afterward or whatever. The weight, we can calculate the weight based on what you package into that box, or we can read that weight from a scale. So if you do have scales, we can set it up to be able to read that weight from a scale. It takes a couple hours to set that up, but we can go in and allow you to read that weight directly from a scale. All right, so I scanned the order. I said I'm using medium box size, scan that, and now I have to tell the system what's going into this box. And again, to do that, I'm going to do that sort of the difficult but good way. I'm actually going to scan each item that I'm packaging to verify which item I'm packing. So there's a number of different ways you can do this, but I'm going to scan one of those barcodes. And what it does is it comes in here and it says, okay, you packed one of these 1972 into box 385. I could also have the system prompt me for a quantity, so I can just scan the barcode once and type in, 3, and it would work. But in this case, I've just set it up so that every time I scan that item, it just increments the quantity for me. So that's great if you have a situation where, again, you have a pile of parts or a pile of products sitting beside you, and you just pick something up, you beep it, and you drop it in the box that you're packaging it into, right? And again, if I pick something up and scan it and it's invalid, it's going to yell at me, and I know I'm not supposed to package this item. So at any rate, I scanned 2 of these guys and packaged them into box 385, and then I'm going to scan one of these guys and package it into box 385. And let's say that box is now full. So I'm going to start a new box. So I go ahead, start a new box. Now we're in box 386. And then I am going to cheat a little. I'm going to scan a command that just packs the remaining items into that box 386. So, again, that was a bunch of scans. That was maybe 10 scans, maybe about 10 seconds worth of interaction with the system to generate those packages, to verify that I'm packing the right items in those packages and everything else. So that's about the worst case, where I just, I'm beeping a lot, but I get a lot of information. I know exactly which lot numbers and serial numbers I've packed into which box, the weights and dimensions of each box, all of that kind of stuff. And it is actually pretty quick and easy to do. I say it's the hardest way to do it, but it's pretty simple. Now, the system says, okay, we're fully packed. What do I do next? Well, typically, I want to go out and get my shipping labels now. So I've packaged everything. I've got 2 boxes. I just want to say, okay, print the labels for those boxes so I can get this thing out the door. So I'm going to scan a command that's get label, and it's going to go out and print my labels, except we didn't tell it which labels to print. We don't know which carrier to use. So in a case like this, what it's doing is behind the scenes, it went out online in real time and grabbed, based on the packages that I've defined and the weights and everything else, it grabbed the rates from every carrier I have defined in the system and brings up all of the different options from those carriers. Okay, so example, I've got, well, it's a Canadian shipment, so I've got Canada Post, but that would be USPS. Potentially, I've got FedEx, FedEx only. I only have ground set up for FedEx. I don't have all the other FedEx services set up. I've got an LTL service. So here's an example of how we can do LTL as well, where there's really 3 ways we can do LTL. One is something just like this, where I choose an LTL carrier, can be some random hotshot carrier or bike courier or something like that, and I just choose this, and it'll actually prompt me for their tracking number, their cost, their delivery time, and I just enter that manually. So I phone them up, manually and get the rates and everything else, and then I choose this and I can enter that from here. So that's one option. Another option is you can set it up to load those LTL rates into Business Central. So that requires some additional effort. There's some customization work typically there, depending on how the rates are formatted and everything else. But we can load those rates into Business Central, and then they would just show up here in the rate shop screen. Okay, and I can choose one of those from there. And then the last one is later this year, we're going to have integration with a whole bunch of LTL carriers where you'll be able to rate shop your LTL carriers just like we can rate shop the parcel guys. And so there's a couple hundred LTL carriers that will be available, mostly North American. But again, if you've got a smaller carrier that you use, a local guy, you're probably going to want to use something like this. Okay, anyway, back to the typical scenario. I've got a bunch of carriers defined in the system that I use. So I use Canada Post, I use FedEx, I use UPS. I'm just going to choose one of these guys. I'm going to choose FedEx Ground for fun for 86 bucks, and I'm going to go. Now again, typically the warehouse is not going to see this screen. They will never see this screen, depending on your environment, because you're going to have that carrier defaulted in from the customer, or it's going to be set on the sales order, it's going to be set from the e-commerce site or whatever, and the shipper is not going to see this screen. It's just going to print out a FedEx label for them. The other option is if you leave that carrier blank, when we run this, instead of showing the screen, it'll just go out and find the cheapest rate and print the label for the cheapest service. So there's a couple of different options we have there. But in this case, it did show the shipper all the different options, the delivery days, so they can shop based on delivery time or shop based on price, or just choose the one they like the best and hit OK. And at that point, it spits out the shipping labels on the printer beside the shipping station, right? Pretty simple. And that's where you want the print node connector too, by the way. With the print node connector, it'll automatically print out, the packing slip and the, carrier label and whatever else you want without any user interaction. In my case, I've got it set up to do a print preview, so I can hit that and, just to show you what it looks like. It's not going to be, rocket science or anything. It's going to be a couple of shipping labels. Looks like our sandbox is a little slow today. But there's my FedEx label, box 1 of 2, box 2 of 2. This would print out on my label printer and slap it on the box, and out the door it goes. So it's pretty simple, right? Makes it fairly easy to do. So again, that took me, other than the actual physical packaging part of this, that took me maybe 10 seconds to package up that order and print out a shipping label, just like that, right? Very straightforward, very easy to do. But in addition to just being able to get that label, we did a few other things. So one of the things is we went out and we sent an email to the customer. So if I log into Gmail here, as if I was the customer, that ordered this product, I've got an email here that says, hey, here's your order, blah, 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 it's on the way. And you can put whatever you want in this email. This one here has a format where it's actually using a Business Central report as the body of the email. So you can go into Word and you can define whatever you want this thing to look like. You can include item information, whatever you want in here. You can also include things like tracking links, right? So I've got another one here I sent to a different customer. Let's find one here. So here's an example where if we send an email to warehouse A or customer A, it can be a different format than customer B. So in this case, I've got a completely different format for a different customer. And regardless of the format you use, you can include these tracking links. And what happens with this tracking link is it sends the customer to a web page that has your logo on it, your advertising, your links, all of that kind of stuff. So it doesn't say Insight Works. It'll have, if Walmart was using this, that'd say Walmart and everything else. And the nice thing about that is we're not sending them to the UPS or FedEx site or anything like that. They're coming to a page where you can upsell them, you can, give them weekly specials, you can say thank you, you can do whatever you want. So this is how you get your marketing guys to pay for your shipping software, by the way, because they love this stuff. Anyway, the only thing that changes here is this logo. If it was FedEx, it would say FedEx and everything else, but we've got a nice little screen, gives you all the same detail as those sites and everything else. Okay, so that's the first thing that we did is we sent out that email to the customer to let them know their stuff's on the way. The other thing we did, if we go into that order that we just processed, so I'm loading up the actual sales order here, we did a couple of other things. If you look here, we've got this delivery expense line on here. So we added this freight charge automatically to the order. Okay, so, and we priced it at $95. So that's actually 10% markup from what FedEx was charging us. They were charging us 86 or whatever. We marked that up by 10%, and that's what we're going to charge the customer. Okay. And we can do that based on the customer ship to code, the carrier service. So if you're shipping overnight, maybe you have a higher markup than if you're shipping ground. The order value and the freight value, we can set the rules based on any of that criteria. And the rules, we can include markups, we can include discounts, we can include flat rate costs, or add-on charges. And so in this case, I marked it up by 10%, but over here, you'll see I also gave them 100% discount on that freight. And that 100% discount is because their order value was over $1,000. So I had a rule in there that said for this specific customer, if we ship FedEx or whatever, we're going to mark it up by 10%. If their order value is greater than $1,000, we're going to give them a discount. So that's how it works, right? It's actually very easy to set those up. Now, beyond that, we also come down here, we put in the carrier now and the tracking number and everything. So if there is a problem, we have that tracking number and everything else. But going a little bit beyond that, depending on your requirements, we also have the ability to track that package-specific tracking information. So here are the boxes that I packaged. 385 and 386 are the boxes I packaged on this particular order. And again, these can be boxes, they could be pallets, they could be pretty much anything you want, right? This isn't restricted to small parcel. I could have been shipping this LTL or whatever. But if I come in here and I open up one of these guys, you can see here's the details. Here's my carrier label if I need to reprint it, or if I need to do refund the label or do a return label. Maybe they phone up a few weeks later and say it's broken. Can I send it back? I can do return labels, all that kind of stuff. At any rate, here's all the details on that particular package. Here's everything we packaged into it. And down here is the tracking number for that specific box, along with a whole bunch of other stuff, like if there's insurance values and all those sorts of things are tracked here. And if I go to the next package, you'll see that we've got a different tracking number for that second package. So that can be really helpful especially if you're shipping things with lot numbers and serial numbers and things like that. You can figure out exactly what got lost, because those will be tracked here in the package details, and you know exactly which tracking number was used, so you can chase FedEx or UPS or wherever with the appropriate package tracking number. Okay, so at any rate, just to recap a little bit of that, what we did was I scanned the order to bring the order up. I created a box. I scanned the items that went in that box. I started the next box. I scanned those items. I said, print me my label. And that was it. That was the extent of the interaction with the system. And after that, we sent the email to the customer. The labels popped out. We added the freight charge, the sales order, and we stored the tracking numbers for this historically as well. So that's all there is to it. Okay, very simple. Now, we often get questions about, well, what if the customer wants me to charge their UPS account number or something like that? Well, we can handle that as well. So I'm just going to scan a command here that brings up all the options for this particular thing. Again, you can go to the menu to do that as well. But for this particular shipment, I can come in here and I can set a whole bunch of stuff, like if we can ask for delivery confirmation, or all sorts of different options in here. These custom print things, what that is on the carrier label itself, there's 3 reference fields, depending on the carrier. Some only have 2, but there's reference fields that you can specify information that prints right on the carrier label. And all of these options can be defaulted in based on the customer. So if you have a specific customer that always wants to see their PO number on the carrier label, you can set up a template that always prints their, purchase order number on that carrier label, or any other detail, maybe the contact name or department or whatever they want. You can set that up every time you print a label for that customer. It prints out whatever they need on there. Okay, so a bunch of stuff like that. You can ship COD, and here's if you're doing alternate billing, where you can bill the receiver, like bill a third-party account number. All of that kind of stuff is available as well. And some of these depend on the carrier and the service that you're using. Some can do collect, some can't, but third-party billing is typical, where you're entering the UPS account number or whatever that you're going to bill instead of charging the customer the freight. Okay, so a whole bunch of stuff we can do there. Lots of different options that are available within the system. Okay. Now, another question I often get, and maybe I'm preempting some of the questions that you've already asked in the question box, is international shipping. So I'm just going to bring up an order here. I'm just going to type it in. And this one happens to be an international shipment. So we're of course, Maine is in Canada here, and we're shipping out to Ohio. So this is an international shipment. So how do we deal with customs? Well, the customs is pretty much handled automatically. For the bulk of the, the standard type of shipments, we deal with all the customs. If you have things like, you're shipping to, a restricted country, or there's restricted items you're shipping or things like that where you need additional paperwork, you're going to have to do that, externally or modification within Business Central to handle those types of things. But for the bulk of the product that gets shipped, we handle that just fine. And the way we do that is if I come in here and I just scan the command to load up my customs, it's going to bring up my commercial invoice. So really, this is effectively the electronic version of the commercial invoice. So this is all the detail we need for the customs commercial invoice. And the only thing the shipper typically has to do is come in here and enter this content explanation, right? So we can also default that in. So if you're always shipping, everything you're always shipping is bikes or bike parts or whatever, we can default that in every time. Otherwise, somebody would come in here and just type in what they're shipping, hit certify, and that's all you have to do for customs. That's it, right? And the reason is because down here, if I scroll down, this is everything I'm shipping on that particular order. So we've only got that one line, we're shipping 5 bikes, but all the details for those bikes, so the value, the weight, the country of origin, the HS code, all of that kind of stuff is coming in from the item master within Business Central. So nobody has to enter any of this stuff. You can override it. So here, on the order, the value is 4,000, but for customs purposes, I'm claiming these at 2,000. Or I can override the weight or the country of origin, or maybe I want to use a different HS code this time, or whatever. So you can override that if you like, but everything comes in from the item master. So all I have to do is enter this potentially, hit certify, and we send that information to the carrier directly. And now the carrier has everything they need to clear customs electronically. And of course, we print the paper copy of the commercial invoice as well that you can, put in a packing slip envelope or whatever. And we can either print the carrier's version of that commercial invoice. So the carrier will provide us a commercial invoice based on what we submit, or you can print the one that comes from Business Central. So if you want to add your own terms or additional detail that the carrier doesn't provide on that commercial invoice, you've got one in Business Central that you can customize if you like. So regardless of which one you print, out pops the commercial invoice. We've already sent all that information to the carrier, so they'll clear it electronically, and away you go. So customs is actually quite easy. So it's great if you don't do a lot of international shipments, because everybody always forgets. If you're doing one a month, you always forget, what do I do for international again? Well, this is all automated, so they don't really have to remember anything on those. And if you do a ton of international shipments, it's also great because it's all automated and nobody has to do anything. It's very quick and easy and relatively seamless. All right, so that's the international shipping side of it. So there's a whole bunch of options and things like that we can do there. I will mention a couple of other minor things on this screen. So this internal package label, we don't do EDI directly. We'll partner with an EDI provider out there, and all the sort of big guys are supported for the most part. So if you want to print UCC 128 labels and things like that, we can do that. That's this internal package label. Or if that internal package label is just an address label that you want to add to the packages or whatever you like, or maybe it's a safety data sheet that you want to put in the box, whatever you want to put in there, you can, and we'll print that out. Carrier label, the bill of lading, if you're doing LTL, we'll print out a bill of lading as well. And again, if you're not doing rate shopping, or if we don't have that direct connection to the carrier that you're using for LTL, you'd print the bill of lading out of Business Central. You can customize the layout of that report or whatever you want to do, but you can use that as your BOL. On the carriers that we do have online support for, again, coming later, that bill of lading will come directly from the carrier as well. So just like the commercial invoice, we can get a carrier one or a Business Central one. We'll have the same for the bill of lading. Okay. All right. So that's really it for the package worksheet. Again, for the most part, you scan the order, you scan the items you want to package optionally, and you print the label, and you're done. Now, just for fun, what I'm going to do is show you one option for sort of an easier way to do that packaging. So I'm going to load up that order that we were working on before, and I'm just going to start from scratch as soon as I find my paper here. So I'm going to load this up, And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just unpack everything. I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to scan a command here that just clears out all my packaging. So now as far as this order is concerned, we've got no packages. We do now have a FedEx guy indicated, so we know we're shipping at FedEx. But somebody drops all of this stuff off at the counter for me. I scan the order to load it up. And then what I want to do is I just want to say, give me a shipping label. So I scan a command. Oh, sorry, I lied. First, I'm going to tell the system, you can bypass this thing too, but I'm going to create a box. The command I scan would also create a box for me if I wanted. But then I scan a command and it just prints out a shipping label, and that's it. So it can be as easy as that. Scan the order, scan a command, and I'll pop my shipping labels, right? So here's my FedEx label for that shipment, and that's all that it does, right? So this print preview is a little weird, but that carrier label, it's just going to be a FedEx label. I don't know why it's not. The print preview isn't working. Well, somebody's updated my Business Central, it looks like, while we're playing. That's the disadvantage of playing on a sandbox environment. At any rate, it can be as simple as that. Beep, beep, and I'll pop my shipping labels. Okay, so that's the package worksheet, and that's where most people are going to spend their time. There are a few other things that we do. I'm just going to mention a couple of them. One is shipment manifests. So we can actually go out and generate a manifest, and that can be used both for, actual manifesting of an order. Like if you're doing an LTL shipment, you can use that to make sure that you've loaded everything onto the truck. But it can also be used for freight reconciliation. So if you do outbound freight reconciliation, you can generate a manifest for a specific carrier and a specific time range, and then compare that to the invoice you get from the carrier based on tracking number and order number and everything else, and make sure they're billing you what you expected. Miscellaneous shipments is a good one. Miscellaneous shipments allows you to, use Dynamics Ship like you would use, one of the carrier packages. And what I mean by that is you can come in here and you can just say, I want to do a shipment from somewhere to somewhere else. And I can come in and choose an existing address from within Business Central or manually enter an address. So that's all I do. I specify the address, or, based on manual entry or based on an existing address within Business Central. And then I just come in and I specify the number of boxes I'm shipping, description for the box, so I can list 5 boxes here that I'm shipping. And then I go in and I say, get me my shipping label. And that's it. So that's basically like how the carrier software works today. You come in, you enter an address, you enter, where you're shipping it to, and the number of boxes, and it prints a label. Well, that's exactly the same here. But the advantage is I can actually do that rate shopping and everything else as well. And I get all the same detail as if I'd used the package worksheet. But this allows me to ship things where I don't have a sales order, where I don't have items or anything else. So we see, sort of office admin personnel using this to ship, stacks of documents to the lawyer, or maybe you want to ship a trade show booth to a conference or something like that. You can use this to do that. So that's actually quite a handy feature as well. All right, now there's a lot more to Dynamics Ship, but really those are the things that you're going to use. The package worksheet, there's an order packaging screen if you're doing high volume type stuff that you can use as well, but the package worksheet really is the most typical, and some of those other things you might use occasionally. Once you've used that package worksheet, so once you've gone through and you've generated your labels and everything else, you can also do things to evaluate what's happening in your shipping department. So we have a Power BI application available as well. And this you can get from AppSource as well, but it takes a little bit of, we got to wire it up to Business Central. So there's a little bit of time required to wire up, an hour or two. And once we do that, you can start reporting on all of your shipping activities within Business Central with these dashboards. So this one tells me, by carrier, how much time I spent, all of that kind of stuff. We've got by shipping agent, so I can click on this and just drill down to just the UPS stuff. Or if I want to get fancy, I can actually drill down into individual UPS, services and filter based on that. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do here to figure out what's going on, filtering by all sorts of different criteria. And so this dashboard here gives you some decent information, some summary stuff and everything else. And then we've got things like on the customers, I can come in and I can see if I'm making or losing money on my freight on a per customer basis or per sales order basis or a carrier basis, whatever you want. So we track all of that cost and what we're actually charging the customer. So it makes it very easy to analyze, are you making or losing money on UPS? Are you making or losing money on LTL? And this might be perfectly valid, right? Maybe these guys get free shipping, so we know how much they're costing us from a freight perspective whenever they're ordering, right? So there's lots of good detail in these reports, and these just come along for the ride with the package worksheet, right? Everything you just do normally to ship, you get all of these reports along with it. All right, so that's really all I wanted to cover from a software perspective, unless there's any additional questions on any of that.
Mark, we have a question that came through, if you want to go ahead and answer that.
Okay, let's see. Sorry, just opening it up. Do we support APO, FPO shipments in the US? Yes, I believe so. I think that's carrier specific, but I'd have to double check on that one. I'm pretty sure we do, but I'd have to double check. I think that's where you're shipping to like military bases and things like that. So I think we do, but I'd have to double check. Anyway, you can follow up with that afterward, and we'll let you know for sure one way or the other. Another question: can you validate a shipping weight of the item coming from a scale at the time of shipment? Yes, we do that. Typically, that's done, from the handheld devices. That's usually where it's done, where we're on LTL. But yes, we could set that up in Dynamics Ship, where you can go in. We track the weight of everything that you've packaged, and then if you weigh it on a scale, if there's a significant discrepancy, we can pop up and yell at the shipper. Now, we don't do that by default. That would maybe be another half hour or 45 minutes worth of work to set up that logic to do that. But yes, definitely possible, and we've done that a number of times. Another question: can it handle the insurance fee calculation out of the box? Yeah, so insurance, it's going to depend on what insurance you're using, whether it's the carrier or third-party insurance. The carrier insurance cost is actually included in the rate shopping. So if you have that turned on, and incidentally, there may be some potential extra work required to leverage the carrier insurance, depending on the deals you have with them and everything else. But that insurance rate comes back in the rate that we get from the carrier. So it's not sort of segregated out. If you're using third-party insurance, then we know exactly what that insurance rate is going to be, and we can include that in the freight price as well. All right. Any other questions on that at all? All right. And here's one: what's the cost of the solution? So that's if you talk to Innovia, get a hold of your Innovia rep, they'll be able to help you out. They'll be able to give you a quote and estimate how long it's going to take to implement and all that kind of thing. If you're using it in sort of the standard way that I showed you here, where you're just going beep, 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 and it's pretty close to how you'd use it in your facility, you can be up and running very quickly, but they'll be able to give you an idea of what it's going to take to purchase the software and get it going. All right. Angie, anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, Mark, I think you covered it all. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody. Hopefully that was valuable, and hopefully we'll be talking again soon.
All right. Well, thanks again, Mark, and to everyone joining us today. If anybody has any additional questions that you want to get addressed, please feel free to reach out to your account manager at Innovia, and we'll be more than happy to discuss those with you. And just to let you know, we do have more webinars coming up. Next Wednesday, we have Sandra Cummings from Equisys presenting on paperless document and expense management for Dynamics NAV Business Central. And next Thursday, we have Larry Sheets from Avalara presenting on 2020 sales tax changes. It's a mid-year update. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's innovia.com/events. And have you heard our podcast yet? It's called the Innovia Conversation, and we just want to encourage you to listen to our selection that our hosts, Steve Waltz and Jeff Pergolski, have provided to us. And you can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page, and that's innovia.com/podcast. So check out the selection and subscribe so you'll be notified when those new episodes air. And fall is here, and that means conference time in our environment. Innovia Consulting is proud to be a premier sponsor for Community Summit, which is a virtual event coming up on October 7th through the 9th. And Community Summit is the annual gathering for all NAV and Business Central users and supporters, regardless of your experience level. It's full of great sessions to help you develop leadership skills and improve your NAV BC skills and so much more. So check out our conference page, and that's innovia.com/conferences for more details on how you can save on your Community Summit registration. All right. Well, we thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another Innovia webinar. Have a great week, everyone.